TripleClick has decided to become an NFT. So what does that mean? You send us $1 million and we'll destroy the environment. Welcome to TripleClick, where we bring the games to you. Today we are opening up the old listener mailbag and answering your questions on all sorts of things. So let's get to it, shall we? I'm Jason Schreier.
I'm Kirk Hamilton.
And I'm Maddy Myers.
We are back for another episode. Hello, my friends.
We sure are.
We are.
Look at us.
It's true.
Back to record a podcast like we always do.
Another week.
Lovely to see you both.
It is. It's nice to see you as well.
The sun is in the air. Vaccines are going around.
The sun is in the air.
This, as opposed to, the other places that the sun
I
goes.
guess that is technically true. The sun is in the air.
Yes,
the sun is
in
the
air.
vacuum of space, just exactly where it's supposed to be.
I guess I'm talking about like the metaphorical sun, like it just
Yes.
feels
The sunlight.
like sunny. Yeah, like
It's
doesn't it just
emanating.
feel? I've been feeling really optimistic lately. I've been feeling like all the
Yeah.
vaccine news is just good
Yeah.
news. I've been feeling very sunny. You know what else I'm optimistic about?
What?
This show's subscribers and members, Max Fun members. I'm very
Cool,
very
yeah.
optimistic about people who help support this show.
I mean, same.
I'm optimistic about them as well.
As returning listeners know, we are a listener-supported podcast. We are entirely funded by you, the listeners, and we are very appreciative to our listeners for that. People who support the show get all sorts of cool stuff. You get access to a big bonus feed where we do monthly bonus episodes. So you get extra Triple Click in the form of Beans Casts and Beans Talks if you become a member. And in fact, we are about to announce our March Beans episode, shall we?
Beans
Yes.
app.
Shall we take it away? So
Beans Talk, or our March
Yeah,
Beans Talk.
it's a beans
this
talk.
month we are doing a beans talk. We are talking beans. We are spilling the beans. And we are going to do an episode about each of our video game, movie, and TV show, et cetera, canons. So we're all going to talk about like the things that define us, the things that like are holy grails in our heads. But that is only available to subscribers along with the rest of our cool stuff. So become a Max Fun member today. Go to MaximumFun.org/join. You will get access to that and lots of other sweet stuff. One other thing before we get to it is, as recurring listeners know, we are all playing Final Fantasy VI because of last year's prediction bet. In theory, right?
In theory, we're all playing it.
Some of
right
us might have
now.
taken breaks for the past few weeks, but as we've announced in the past, we did a triple play last month. We are doing a Beans Cast down the road where we talk about the whole game, but we decided we're going to do another triple play so even non-members will get to hear us talk about it a little bit more. So here's the deal. We will be airing our second triple play of Final Fantasy VI on April 15th. So you have about a month, and the stopping point will be right after the floating continent, aka the act break of the game. People who have played it will know exactly what I'm talking about. You two don't know quite what I'm talking about, but
By
you
act
will know
break,
it.
do you mean the second act? Like the game has two acts, and
The game has two
the
acts.
Start of the second act.
This is the start of the second act. This is the intermission, so to speak. It's not the halfway point because the first half of the game is longer than the second half, but it will be very clear when you will know it when you get there. You will know exactly what I'm talking about.
Much like the Opera House, which was also a very definitive stopping point.
Yes,
okay,
this is
cool.
also a definitive stopping point. So we will talk about that on April 15th. So to those of you who maybe fell behind on your playing, you have until then to talk about that. We'll spoil the game only up to that point on April 15th. And then we'll talk about the whole game in a Beans Cast down the road, probably over the summer at some point. All right. All that is out of the way. Now let's get to it.
Yes.
This week, we are doing Burning Questions, where we reach into the mailbag and pull out some excellent hot questions from all of our listeners. As always, you can reach us at tripleclick@maximumfun.org. We read every email. We try to respond to a lot of them. Don't get a chance to respond to every single one, but we appreciate every single person who writes in. And we have picked some cool questions that we want to answer today. Maddy, why don't you take us away with this first question?
Sure. So this question's from Maltha, who writes, have any of you battled with repetitive strain injury or similar pain from gaming? And is it something you think about or work to avoid? I have not had this problem, but Kirk told us both today, but he has a response to this question. I'm very curious to hear what it is, Kirk.
I do. Well, so I talked about this, I guess, a couple weeks ago. I was talking about Spider-Man Miles Morales and how that game, like the Arkham games where you have to do a lot of sort of beat 'em up combat with the face buttons, and how that had been giving me RSI. Like it made my thumb kind of tired. I've actually been replaying Hollow Knight, and there are parts of that game too where you're really going at it and jumping and attacking and just hitting the face buttons a lot. And that motion with the thumb can be very tiring. So I talked a little bit about that and just how I'd run into it. Some people in the Triple Click Discord were then talking about how there are products out there that are like braces for your thumb. And I've been looking at them. They're pretty cool. And they're for combating RSI basically when you're playing video games. I don't want to endorse any particular ones because I don't have one and I haven't used one, but they do exist. And so this is something I've thought about. And just because I also play a lot of instruments and those can all lead to RSI in various ways. And I'm always very concerned about it. I notice more and more when, piano or guitar are kind of causing some of those things. So I'm always mindful of it because the last thing I would want is for my fingers to get, worse and worse at playing instruments, which does just happen to everybody as they get older. So I'm thinking about it, and at some point I probably will get some sort of thing just for my thumb. And those do exist. So you can look around and find them. I'm not sure which ones are best, but they're out there. And if you're concerned about it, that's probably something good to look into.
Nice. I actually have an endorsement for something a little bit different, but I was starting to have wrist pain a few years ago, and rather than accept it and just get carpal tunnel and be miserable for the rest of my life, I preemptively got this thing, which you can both see, but listeners cannot see. It's a Mueller wrist guard, and I've had it for years, and it's awesome, and it costs like $13 on Amazon or something like that.
Nice.
And I wear it every single day, and it has prevented so far any pain.
I have seen the advice that generally preventative measures are really good in this kind of thing. It's you can just ride it out as long as your hands are fine and not think about it. And then once you start getting the problems, it's very hard to work backward, where if you actually are kind of proactive about it, that can really help you out.
Yeah, I could not agree more with that because I felt it coming on, and I never quite got there where it was real pain in my wrist, but I could feel oh, this is a little uncomfortable. And then so I started using the wrist guard and haven't felt a single problem.
This is inspiring me to go ahead and order one of those thumbs.
You
should.
Yes.
It is an endorsement apparently, because now I feel like I need one.
Yep. There we go. That's good.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, I mean, with wrists, for our line of work, people who are typing constantly, playing music, it's wrists. I mean, wrists are super important. Anyway, let's get to the next question. Kirk, you want to take us away?
Sure. This is a fairly long one, but I'll read it and I might do a little bit of paraphrasing. This comes from Luke. Luke writes, I, like so many others, bought into the hype for Cyberpunk 2077. I pre-ordered for PS4. A studio like CD Projekt, I figured they'd built enough of a reputation to ensure a good game at the very least, maybe even a great one. Reviews noted bugs. I figured that was to be expected. The Witcher 3 still has some, so I was locked in. I know the video games as movie comparison is problematic, but as a basic example, even the biggest tentpole movie PR teams will tell you how long the movie is, but few games will even give you a ballpark. Also, there's things like frame rates and bugs. He mentions some other stuff also that you kind of have to test for yourself. Luke writes, it just feels that gamers are expected to put in all this extra effort, like decoding a 2-second teaser trailer to find out release dates. There almost needs to be that community because we all have the same product but with wildly different results. TLDR, cultures of crunch and unrealistic hype marketing from gamers as well as studios clearly play into broken launches. But do you all think that transparency would help a situation like this? Are studios justified or ethical in wanting to show their product in what they feel is the best light, or do we as consumers have the right to some more information before a purchase? So this is a big question, definitely a hot topic. This is a burning question. I don't know, what do the two of you think?
Okay, so I have a lot of thoughts on this. I mean, first of all, I don't think that we as consumers have a right to anything. I don't really buy the whole consumer rights thing, and often that's used in really gross contexts, and it's used as an excuse to do or say really gross things. That said, it is super fucked up how opaque the video game industry is. I think about all this time. I talk about this all the time at work, because when I started at Bloomberg, we had a lot of conversations and people were just like baffled at the fact that video game sales info wasn't available anywhere. So nobody could actually talk about like the industry in any sort of
like how many players are interested in a game or playing it currently. Like all of that information is
it's just all hidden. And we just have a lot of like systemic things in the video game industry that people just accept. And this is one of those things, which is like you won't know how long a game is or how buggy it is or what kind of what the technical situation is until you've played it or reviews came out or whatever. I think part of that, unfortunately, is the nature of the beast, because movies are finished months before they actually hit theaters. Sometimes there's like post-production happening towards the end and a little bit of tweaking and stuff, but like
occasionally
like
Cats gets a post-release patch to fix some CGI problems, but that was
Cats was the most video game ass movie ever though, across the board.
Yes.
But yeah, I was thinking about this with books because I got a new book coming out. Press your set. Comes out May 11th. Plug. And I was telling people to pre-order it, and a couple of people have been like, "Oh, you're such a hypocrite, Jason, for like you've told people not to pre-order games."
That's really funny, though.
That's very good.
So I was thinking about how funny it is because my book was finished like I've been going through edits for a year. Like I filed my rough draft like last March, I think March of 2020, and it's all just been edits since then, and it's been locked like almost totally final as of like what was it? Like months ago, like
locked
October,
60,
November,
locked 60 frames per second.
Yeah, locked 60 frames per second. Like
Locked.
6 months before it actually comes out.
You've already went gold back in December.
Can't wait for the Digital Foundry video about press reset.
Yeah, just doing some final optimization. But yeah, just because games are such a different medium for all sorts of reasons, they don't have that extra slack. And I think that's like a systemic issue. And I think like if there was more of a barrier between when a game is actually finished and when it actually comes out, that might help things. But really, fundamentally, game companies are just fucking opaque and it's awful.
Yeah, I think that part of this that's interesting to me is when Luke points out the idea of how much extra effort gamers do. And I think this has become extremely normalized to the three of us and probably a lot of our listeners that, yeah, of course you need to read a whole bunch of reviews and also news articles ahead of time about Cyberpunk 2077 to find out what's really going to happen with that game. And you're following all of the stages of its development and you know how tortured it was and so on and so forth. But most people aren't in that position. Like that's actually describing a minority of the gamer audience that is that informed. Most people are just picking up the game on release day or week after and like, oh wow, this game really sucks or whatever they may think of it, and they have no prior context for it. And that is such a weird situation. And I don't think that is comparable to books or TV or movies where it's already in the air. Those properties are available in screener form for often months ahead of time. Critics really know what they're describing. Whereas with games, it's not just that the studios are opaque, it's also that these are often very huge products. Like the ones Luke's describing are generally these big AAA properties that are very secretive and can afford to be. And so then the only way that you could truly know what to expect would be if you are watching a bunch of Digital Foundry, reading a bunch of Reset Era, like listening to podcasts, hearing all those speculation podcast episodes about what could be in the game, and then you know. But that's absurd. Like, why would that be the expectation to be a gamer? It's silly.
Yeah, I think that there is something about people who play video games who like that kind of thing. Like on some levels, that can be a very positive thing. There's a lot of stuff in the world of video games where gamers come together to solve these incredible problems, or finish an ARG, or assemble the full lore of Dark Souls, and then you get these videos that like the whole reason the videos are
find secrets in Destiny.
Right. Well, and the whole reason that those Dark Souls lore videos are special is because the game didn't do the work for you. And so when you then see that the people have assembled it and put it all together, and then there's some of it as theories, like that can be really cool. And that is like a part of game culture that is generally really cool. And then sometimes that makes its way into game marketing, and sometimes it makes its way into game marketing in ways that are fun, like where, a game will be kind of teased in a way that people have to figure out. And a lot of times it's less fun, or it's kind of exploitative, or, they're hiding the ball in a way that's really frustrating. I think I have a couple other thoughts on this. One is that I just upgraded the operating system on my Mac and was struck by how complicated it was, only because it didn't work. And then I like had all this software stuff that I had to figure out, and I had to reinstall it and figure out how to do it. And it was making me reflect on, I guess there was never a time where things were just easy, and like a Mac was just, because there was always supposed to be the easier to use computer and you could just upgrade things. But it certainly felt like it used to be easier than it is now. And I think part of that is just that the threshold for technology has just risen. Like, people are just more familiar with more complicated things. And as a result, these products are just more complicated. And it is a lot harder for a company like CD Projekt to give a full picture of a game like Cyberpunk. That's kind of a bad example because they hid the ball in a lot of ways that were not cool and really clearly designed to hide the shittier versions of the games from people. So that's like maybe not a great example. But anyone showing a game does have a really complicated object to try to show off to people without letting them play it. And that's my last thought, is just there is like a fundamental difference between video games and movies. That's maybe it's helpful to make the comparison to technology instead, like to like a phone or, some sort of new device. Because when Apple releases a new phone, they'll tell you, I mean, they're more transparent. They'll tell you like the estimated battery, usage and all, and like how fast the chip is and whatever. But you don't get to use it until you buy it. And it isn't until those other sites do the teardowns and do the kind of full tests that you get the full sense of the product. And games are as much product as they are just like a visual art medium, the way that a movie is. So you have to kind of have that element of it to fully understand it. Like, you have to take that part of it apart. And I don't know what the method would be for the people who make the games to do all of that breaking down beforehand, even though I totally agree that they're not doing enough right now. Like, the game length thing is a great example. The fact that you'll just be like, how long is the game? I remember being back when I was a games journalist. That was always one of those questions that I just wouldn't bother asking, because you just get to the point where you're like, well, how long is the game? And they're like, well, we're not really talking about that now, but it's a healthy length,
Well, that's also, it's an impossible question to answer because it could be so many.
It's true. No, yes, absolutely.
Like, it could change drastically depending on how you play.
And it's the kind of thing that can lead to a really charged reaction. Like, if the community of the game, like the game's fans, deem your response to be too short, they'll be like, what? The new RPG is only 25 hours long? Like, I'm so upset about that, even though maybe it's only 25 hours long if you mainline the story, and really it could be 50 hours long, and it's a variable answer. It's a hard question to answer, but the lack of transparency right now does seem less than ideal.
Yeah. I think one important thing here and one important takeaway from Cyberpunk is that even if you feel like you trust a company, you shouldn't. Like, you should never trust companies. And like, even if a company is like appears to be gamer friendly and like they came out with The Witcher 3 and it was awesome and you loved it and you thought it was really
just like
great.
As a for instance.
Like,
yeah, theoretically, a gamer friendly company, I maybe they made something
that released a game called The Witcher 3.
No, but like, it's still a company that has obligations, especially a publicly traded company. Its obligations are first and foremost to its shareholders, but also like if you are pre-ordering a game, you can't like think of it as a future looking investment almost, where like you can't look at past performance as an indicator of success. Like, just because The Witcher 3 was great doesn't mean that like the next game will be great. It might help the odds.
You're becoming such a Bloomberg writer. The Bloomberg is really rubbing off on you. It's good.
Yeah, man. the Bloomberg is rubbing off on me. That's why I'm such a pro-capitalist, shareholder loving.
Yeah.
That's me.
Yeah.
But no. My point is that like, I don't think you can really rely on any company to come out with a game that is like perfect on launch, because games are so complicated, and like even the developers with the best possible intentions might get it wrong, might not know how bad something might be. And I do think, Kirk, to your point earlier about like CD Projekt hiding the console versions of the game, I actually kind of give them the benefit of the doubt there. And I actually think that, like, based on my own reporting, I think they more believed that everything would actually come together at the last minute, and that's why they kind of kept it from people. Maybe they thought the day one patch would help things, or maybe they thought that like really like
sure
by day one things would be fixed.
But they were still keeping a non-working version of the game from people. I mean, there was an effort to do that, which itself is not cool.
No, not at all.
But you're saying it wasn't with the effort to deceive people into buying a broken game. They were thinking the game would be fine by the time people were going to buy it. I get the distinction.
But there were people working on that game, though, who knew it was bad. Like, there were people at CD Projekt who worked on those ports and knew that what they were making was not
No,
good.
They all knew. So everybody knew it was a problem. But the question is, will this problem fix itself the way The Witcher 3 did? Like on the end of The Witcher 3, everything was buggy as hell and super broken, and then it all coalesced. And I think they thought that they had the CD Projekt Red magic, like similar to BioWare. They thought it would all come together.
Yeah, or at least the managers thought that.
Yeah, exactly. We've had this conversation a lot about like reviewing a game when you don't have the day one patch yet, and how much do you tell your viewers or your listeners or your readers when it might not be relevant to them, that experience. And that is a really tough thing as a reviewer. It's a really tough thing as a game developer. It's a really tough thing as a PR person. It's just a super tricky situation that I think like would be better if there was some guaranteed buffer time or something like that. But for a variety of reasons, there isn't anything like that. But that itself, I think, is like raises a question of like, how can you possibly know if a game will be fixed on launch until you actually get to launch? And there's an argument to be made that like nobody should be posting reviews until later on. But yeah, it's all systemic problems is the point.
And problems related to the nature of video games, which, I agree with.
Yep. Okay, let's move on. I will read this next question. This is from Aurora. I've spent 5 hours playing the demo for Dragon Quest XI on the Switch, and I'm now uncertain if this game is for me. There's some things I enjoy and some things I quite dislike. I'll probably end up shelving it to finish Tales of Vesperia. Good game. You three have distinct and identifiable taste. What factors help determine whether a game is for you or not? How long does it usually take? Is there anything that specifically turned you off or an expectation that you think you love? What actually defines giving a game a fair chance? This is a really interesting question. Either of you want to go first?
This is a philosophical question. I don't think I have the same answer for every game ever. I think you know it when you know it. If I had to come up with a rule, I would agree with Aurora that 5 hours is a pretty good amount of time, even though there are many video games that don't get good until you've played them for 10. And we all know that 10 hours is a very long time to ask somebody to play a video game. And yet, on this very show, we have repeatedly said things like, well, after the first 10 hours, it really changes, it really gets good, whatever. We've all said that. But I think 5 hours is probably more accurate to my own experience. You can get a pretty good sense of
even
what
that
a game
is so much
isn't.
time.
I know. That's what's
two
weird
movies.
about this question is like it's basically 6 episodes of television, like 5 hours. You're 2 movies. Yeah, it's absurd that I'm saying that I would perhaps spend 5 hours of my life doing something I do not enjoy doing, and yet I have even spent 10 or 20 hours doing something I do not enjoy doing in the hopes of giving it a chance. And then, only then, given up and been like, I guess this game wasn't for me, which is pretty tragic. I don't know. Kirk, what about you?
It's tricky. I think that's true that there is sort of an ineffable quality to this. Like, it does kind of depend on the thing. I do have, I guess, a few ways of knowing. I know that a game is doing it for me when I find myself thinking about it when I'm not playing it. I think that's a really good tell. Like if I've just been kind of sucked in, and I don't mean that I'm having breakfast and I'm thinking, boy, that lore drop that I read sure was enticing. Like, I don't mean that. It's more like I just kind of have the patterns and the movements and the progression loops like in my head a little bit. And I'm like, ooh, kind of want to play because I'm pretty close to like finding the new thing that's going to give me some new ability to let me explore this new area. Or like, I just got into that mountain zone and it looks really cool. And like, okay, I'm kind of feeling this. Like, I want to know what's going to come next. And I think that when you're asking that question, what's going to come next? I think that that's always at the heart of a game having me is like, I want to know what's next. Like, I want to know what's next in the story. Maybe if it's a story game, I want to know like what abilities I'm going to get next. I want to know what tough fight I'm going to have to like beat next. Like whatever it is, like I'm sort of wondering. I have like this question about what's coming.
It's piqued your curiosity.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and that curiosity can look like a lot of different things. But I think that is like at the heart of knowing when a game's got me. And then on the flip side, when I'm like not feeling it, it's the absence of that. If I'm just sort of like, oh, I don't care. Like, I don't care what's coming next. I don't care about unlocking the new double buster sword or whatever. Like, I don't give a shit because the combat isn't fun. I don't care. And then I just don't care. So then I stop playing.
Are you saying Final Fantasy VII did not? Okay.
I said Buster Sword as a sort of a generalized term because
it's just a general
Buster
pejorative
Swords
for
are
JRPGs.
I love Final Fantasy
bad.
VII. So
Yeah, I don't think there are any other games that have a Buster Sword other than other games with Cloud in them.
wasn't there a Buster Sword in that movie in Edge of Tomorrow? She had a Buster Sword.
Oh, really?
That's
Is that what it's
true,
called?
yeah.
That's probably a Final Fantasy
I think you get a Buster Sword in Monster Hunter. Maybe there are totally Buster Swords and other things.
But these are all Final Fantasy references, I would say.
Well, yes.
Yeah, I kind of echo your thoughts, Kirk, and I don't have much to add to that. The only thing I will add is that I have found that like sometimes I will bounce off a game because I'm not in the right headspace for it, and then I will try it again later or like in a different mood, and I'll actually really like it. This has happened to me with a few games in the past where I just like wasn't into them at all, and then just jumped right into them. And then I've also found that like sometimes even games that I think I'll hate or won't care about at all, I can, if I give them a chance and like I'm in the proper mood to play something new, then I can really enjoy them. And the perfect example that I'll give for this, which is one of my favorite stories, is that on September 6th, maybe 2014, I was in the Kotaku offices down in the Gawker offices down in Soho, and our old colleague Tina Amini, who was getting like all the games would be shipped, and she would like collect them. She would have packages on her desk and go through them because she was deputy editor or something like that. And she was like, "Hey, Jason, I got a copy of this game. Do you want it?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. This is like not for me." She was like, "Just check it out. We have this extra copy. Just take it." I was like, "All right, I'm going to take it home. I'm going to play it for half an hour, and then I'm never going to touch it again because I know this game isn't for me." That game was called Destiny.
And 1,000 hours later.
1,000 hours later. So, yeah. So, I think that like if you're out there and you're like wondering about a game or you're not sure about it, sometimes I think approaching it from just a different headspace, like, or being in a different mood, a better mood or something like that, can sometimes help with that. All right, one more question and then we will end this segment. Maddy, you wanna read this last one?
Sure. So this one's from James, who writes, "Sharing and trading physical games with friends is about to feel even more old-fashioned than before now that optical disc drives are optional. As someone who grew up sharing games, I'm a bit sad to see it go away. All of the social bonding that came with it made gaming more fun for me. Today, people who can't afford to buy every AAA game have more options. They can subscribe to Xbox Game Pass, PS Now, play inexpensive indie games, and so on. But if you want to share a game with a friend who might like it and doesn't have access to it, your one allotted game sharing partner has already been assigned, hi Xbox, then you'll have to buy the game for them. How do you three feel about this trend?" First of all, James, I'm surprised you didn't mention Steam Share, but Jason, I'll kick it to you since you clearly have an answer.
Yeah, well, so this is very relevant to me because over this past weekend, I just got a bunch of boxes from my parents' place that was like my old stuff, and a lot of it was my old video games. So I was like having this nostalgia trip going through these boxes and pulling out like old Nintendo and Super Nintendo games and PS1 games and some of the newer stuff. I have my giant collection of like 360 and GameCube and Wii U games and stuff. Maddy, I found Metroid Prime up there.
Yeah,
my original GameCube,
yeah. You're
Metroid
having
Prime.
like the opposite of my experience packing everything up to move, where I'm
you're
also
packing.
looking at all my old stuff. Yeah.
But
Anyway,
still, it's
continue.
fun. And the funny thing is, all my Super Nintendo games have my name like and a label on them because I have this label maker, and I would borrow them. I would lend them to friends and like borrow of other friends' games. And I was thinking about how like now all of my modern games are digital on my Switch, digital on my computer, digital on my like Xbox, digital on my PS5, and that's kind of sad. And I know there are a lot of people out there who are like really into physical stuff, and I'm not one of them. I'm very much like all about convenience. But this kind of experience of unpacking those boxes was the first time that I got a little melancholy about the idea that my modern games like I won't be able to stack them all on a shelf the way that I can with all these games. And like, will my kid be doing the same with her games like one day, or are they all going to be digital?
Probably
And
not. Yeah.
there's something a little sad about that, despite me loving everything about the convenience of the digital age and how just like easy it is to just like immediately download something and have it and not have to switch discs every time I want to play a new game or anything like that. There is something really sad about like not having that physical cartridge or box anymore.
Yeah, this is kind of a classic example of something that was nice for a lot of reasons and now is gone, and that's sad. But the reasons that it's gone are also the reasons that a lot of amazing things that are just sort of parallel have cropped up and are now possible. So it's true that the community that you can get from loaning games to your friends is just like a thing that doesn't really exist anymore. But there are a lot of community things that do exist related to games now that didn't exist back when it was more the case that you would be loaning Super Nintendo games to your friends. And I think that is really cool. I've mentioned that I've been just replaying Hollow Knight for fun, and a really good friend of mine who also likes video games, and we used to live really near each other in San Francisco. Now we don't see each other that much anymore. He's been playing through it as well, and he's playing for the first time. So we've just been like texting about Hollow Knight, and then just like sharing, screenshots, and it's like so easy in so many ways because of the very technology, not just digital download technology, but like the same kinds of technological innovations that have made it so that we don't need, or you can't loan games to your friends anymore, have made it possible to share this experience with a friend in another city, and like that, and then of course having Discords and the ways that games are designed for us to share. There are all these other community things that now exist that didn't exist then. So it's kind of like a good way to think of it, I guess, is if you're feeling sad about the thing, which it is sad that this cool thing is now gone, there are a lot of other cool things that are now possible. And while the one didn't directly lead to the other, they are happening due to the same technologies.
Yeah. I really feel that because I have been streaming and watching other people stream on Discord a lot in the pandemic, which is something that I didn't really do that much before. And there was no real reason for it. But it's just that more of my friends are happening to do it now because they're stuck at home. Mm-hmm. And it's introduced me to a way of sharing games that reminds me a lot of like having somebody over, or going to somebody's house, or like, being on the college dorm room floor where like one person's playing Halo and we're all watching it and like making snarky comments over it or whatever, passing the controller around. Like those kinds of experiences, I just don't have that much as an adult, but I feel like I'm getting a warped version of them. Like one of the times I was playing Dark Souls recently, a bunch of my friends have gotten really into Overwatch. I don't care for that game at all, but all of them were in a Discord call together playing Overwatch together, and I just joined it while I was playing Dark Souls, and we all just hung out and talked about the games each of us were playing, and it was almost like having the IRL experience of like some people are all playing a game together, another person is on their laptop playing a different game, everyone's having the shared experience. Like I could share my screen with Dark Souls and show it to them for certain moments, they could share theirs, and I could like watch them get a team kill or whatever. And those experiences are only possible in the current reality we're in now, because these are all people who live all over the country. They don't live on my block. And it's kind of magical and amazing that I can have that social experience now. That would never have been possible before.
That kind of streaming is something that until you talked about it, I'd never even considered, because I think of streaming as like, oh, I have a Twitch channel. And then I'm always like, man, I don't want to do that. And then you're streaming for whoever and you have to publicize it. But like just streaming through Discord to a couple of your friends is very different because
it's so fun.
Yeah. It is like you're just playing for your actual friends. It isn't the whole thing that Twitch streaming has with all these complicated social and parasocial dynamics and whatever. Like you're just with your friends playing video games. That sounds awesome. I don't know why I'm not doing that yet. I need to start doing that more.
Look, much like you, I also had never done that until fairly recently, and it's so fun, and it really is mimicking a social experience that James is essentially describing in this email that I can relate to. And it even ties into the idea of borrowing a game, where like I'll watch somebody play a game that I don't own and just hang out in the Discord and watch them for a while, and then be like, well, maybe I'll buy that game. Or I'll be like, oh, I would hate this. And like, it's a good thing I watched my friend play it, because now I don't need to buy it anymore.
You guys should play Final Fantasy VI by one of you streaming it and all of us watching it.
Oh, that would actually be fun if we did that.
That would basically be my childhood.
That would be fun. And there is this technology that I know they were doing it on PlayStation. I think Steam maybe allows for this in some games, like where you can actually take over for somebody, which they haven't fully mastered yet. Stadia was promising that this would be part of the thing. But I could see as the technology improves, also being able to hand the controller around across state lines and, in other countries. And that's also a very promising, exciting thing.
It is. The future is bright in that one way.
Yeah, look at that. Optimism. We are all feeling optimistic today.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
The future is bright.
It's a weird feeling.
Games are digital. Vaccines are physical. Vaccines are coming into our arms soon. All right. Why don't we take a little break, and then we will be back with one more thing.
Hey folks, it's It's me, James Arthur M., host of Minority Corner, your home through these bewild times for weekly doses of pop culture, history, news, nerdy stuff, and more through a BIPOC, queer, and allied lens. That's how you get Joel Schumacher putting nipples on Batman.
Yeah.
I didn't ask,
like,
and I say
no.
this as a game. I say this as a gay man. Didn't ask for it. I don't need to see Batman's nipples on his suit. Who is this for?
Who is this for?
I did a bunch of research. I wanted to just know about the history of black people in Argentina. So not only did they erase black people from their history, they also started to flip and use it as slurs.
We're not done. We're not done with the work that needs to be done, and so stay awake. So join me and some of your new BFFs every Friday here on Maximum Fun to stay informed, empowered, and have some fun. Minority Corner, because together, we're the majority.
Does our podcast deep dive into the weirdest Wikipedia pages we can find?
Yes. Do we learn about scam artists, remote islands, horrible mascots, beautiful diseases, and mythical monsters?
Yes, absolutely, and yes. Do we retain any of this knowledge?
Probably not. I'm Emily Heller.
I'm Lisa Hannawalt.
We make art and comedy and TV shows, and also the podcast Baby Geniuses. For the past 8 years, we've been trying to learn new things about the world and each other every episode.
But let's be honest, this podcast is mostly about two friends hanging out, shooting the breeze, and making each other laugh. We're horny, we like gardening and horses, and we get real stupid on here.
But in a smart way.
Yeah.
Join us every other week on Maximum Fun.
And we are back. Kirk, Maddy, it is time for one more thing. Kirk, you want to go first?
Sure. So I wrote down in one more thing, progression and inconvenience, and that's a little bit vague.
Are these not the names of games?
I thought this was the new Dostoevsky novel.
Right. No, it's the new Disgaea game.
Yeah.
So I've been thinking about progression in video games because I've been replaying Hollow Knight and also playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And I've been trying to put my finger on what it is about the progression in Hollow Knight that I find so good. It's one of the things about the game that is kind of subtle. Like when you think about, a few guys made Hollow Knight, that's so impressive because it has these really clearly visible things. Great combat, lots of enemies, a really huge world, a great story, good writing and music. It's all this stuff where you're like, wow, I can't believe so few people made that. But it's the under the hood stuff that's impressive. Things like the way the game is balanced and the way that the experience meets itself out over 60 to 80 hours if you're playing for the first time and being a completist. And at every moment, you're appropriately challenged. You're always working towards something that you want to find, some new ability that you want to get. And there are all of these kind of spread out axes for progression that aren't always super convenient to you as a player. They kind of require extra legwork and they take a little bit of time. And as a result, you don't progress super smoothly. There's some friction inserted in the progression of the game. And I think that's the key to what makes it work. And I'll give some specifics to explain what I'm talking about. In Assassin's Creed Valhalla, it's pretty seamless. There's not a lot of friction for the progression, and that's very standard for Ubisoft games. So what that means is, in that game, you fight some guys, you finish a quest, you get XP, your character automatically levels up, you see a notification in the corner of the screen that's you have 2 skill points. If you want to get new abilities, maybe you're about to unlock one of those things in the skill tree, you just pause the game, go right into the skill menu, boom, unlock the things. If you want to upgrade your weapons, you just go right into your menu. You do have to go to a guy to fully upgrade your weapons. You have to go visit him. So there's a little friction there. You have to visit the blacksmith, but a lot of it can just be done in the menus, or it just happens passively while you're playing. You're just steadily getting better and your character improves. So that's the kind of seamless way of doing it, which I'm finding not that satisfying, especially in Valhalla, which I've played for 1 million hours. And at this point, I'm I don't know, none of this matters. I have 2 axes that I like, just who gives a shit? And I just am not playing for the progression at all. I'm just exploring and playing for the story. Hollow Knight, as a comparison, in that game, you're constantly earning Geo, which is the currency that you spend. It's kind of like souls. You can spend Geo to upgrade your weapon, but to do that, you have to go all the way down to this blacksmith. Sometimes you'll get to the blacksmith, and the blacksmith will only upgrade if you give him pale ore, which is the thing you have to go collect. But once you get it, then he tells you how much it costs. Maybe you don't have enough Geo. There's also a collector who will buy these items that you pick up when you're out in the world, and you can get more Geo from him. So you'll kind of be carrying around 3 or 4 of those, thinking, well, if I need it, I can go spend it. So then you have to go all the way over to him. You get the thing from him. You go back. Also, while you're exploring, there are these grubs that you rescue, these little worms. And when you rescue a worm, there's a guy called the Grub Father who's in a different part of the map where when you go visit him, he'll give you Geo, which is the currency. So there are all these different ways that you're kind of you're earning geo by killing enemies. You're also collecting collectibles that you can sell for geo to one guy. You're also rescuing grubs, which is going to get you geo if you go to another guy. But all those things require you to be like in the world and going and doing things. And you don't have to do them all at once, but they're not happening passively. And I think that kind of progression is really good. Like, I think that it pulls you in and kind of makes you engage with it. And it's less convenient. Like, there's actually friction in there. But I think that it actually makes for a much more satisfying experience, and it allows them to kind of meet things out more consciously, like, so that the game doesn't just become this kind of empty, passive, frictionless thing of just numbers going up where it stops really mattering after a certain point. So that's the thought that I had that I'm making my one more thing. Do either of you have any thoughts now that my TED Talk has concluded?
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't bring up that, like in Hollow Knight, to switch your charms that you're using, you have to be sitting on a bench, so you can't just do it anywhere.
There are a bunch of other things like that I wanted to use two specific examples just tied to geo. But yes, Hollow Knight is filled throughout with this kind of thing.
Well, so it's interesting because some people call these like quality of life things, and in some games it feels like, especially games, I think what you're talking about fundamentally is games that are just trying to do very different things. Like Assassin's Creed is very good at exploration and like mystery and story and dialogue, and it only has progression because every AAA game has to have that. Like, it has to be on the feature checklist. Hollow Knight is one of the reasons Hollow Knight is so great is because it's not trying to do everything at once. It's just trying to do very specific things, and it is masterful at everything it tries to do. And I think with Ubisoft, like the progression, like that game didn't need a skill tree. It's just like, oh, it's a Ubisoft open world game, AAA, we're charging $60 for it. It has to have a skill tree. And I think that's the case for a lot of like the big Sony games or like a lot of AAA games these days.
Yeah. The passive thing is also true in JRPGs. I've been noticing this at just a lot of times in the games where you just level up and your numbers just kind of go up. Like, and it's not, I'm not necessarily saying one is better than the other or that everything should be like this. This is like very much the Metroid Souls, like this world of like, the upgrades are things you find in the world. They're not skills that you unlock in a menu. You find a new jump pack, or in Hollow Knight, you find the Mantis Claw and that lets you stick to the wall. Like, it's just a different type of progression, but I'm finding it very satisfying, and I think it's been helpful to articulate what it is about it that I think I find so appealing. And it is that friction.
I think for me it is better. I think I actually would say I actively prefer games that do what you're describing.
Yeah, I mean, same. Yeah.
Where, I mean, the Metroid and the Souls-like game, I don't know if it's, objectively better, if you can measure that, but I agree with you completely that even just the action of physically going to another location, it has the same hit for me as checking something off of a list in real life. Like, I feel as though I've performed a real chore. Like, I've gone all the way to a merchant and purchased an item, and it mattered, and I like had to get souls or whatever in order to get the item, or I have to go all the way back to Andre.
I have to get uncursed after you fell in the frog hole.
I have to get uncursed, or I have to go all the way to repair my weapons again, get the repair box, whatever it may be. I have to physically walk there. I mean, there's some shortcuts in Dark Souls, of course, and you learn your way around Hollow Knight as well, and you figure out the fastest way to do things, but you're still physically having to go and do each action, and that it is inconvenient, as you say, but that's also what makes it so much more rewarding, because you had to walk all the way there to talk to the person and do the thing, and it feels like it actually mattered, as opposed to just pausing the menu and being like, well, now my axe is stronger. Now that I've paused and clicked a little ticky box that made a number get bigger somewhere that I can see. And now I'll close that menu and continue swinging my axe, which is stronger in some type of way.
Yeah, so another thing I thought I'm sort of having now as we're talking about it is that it does kind of depend on the kind of game that they're trying to make, because there are games where inconvenience is just annoying. Like, to use Destiny as an example, it used to be you had to go down to like pick up bounties. You had to like go to individual people, and I think they've streamlined that. There are like a lot of things you used to have to go to the tower to do.
Well, that's what I was talking about. Like, quality of life is the way.
Exactly, and I think that tends to fall more into quality of life, where it would be funny if someone was like, well, now in Hollow Knight, you can do everything from the menus. You don't have to go see Grubfather. You just cash in your grubs and you get your rewards. as a quality of life improvement.
Well, that's to the point that I was making before. It's like it depends what the game is trying to do.
Exactly.
A lot of this stuff just feels tacked on because it is, and oftentimes when something is like feels like you're just going through the motions doing something, it's because it probably shouldn't be in the game in the first place.
Yeah,
it's just kind of a bloated edition.
That's a good point. Yeah. I think and that's maybe why I'm finding the one more appealing. So it's a big conversation, but that's something I've been chewing on.
Good hot topic for the future.
As I've been replaying Hollow Knight, which is still a wonderful game.
Yeah, good hot topic for the future. I'm gonna go next, and then I'll throw it to you, Maddy, because we all want to jump in on your one more thing, but I'll do mine pretty quickly. I've been playing a game called Gnosia, and it's really weird and interesting. It's on the Switch. I'm playing this game because I read a great review edited by Maddie Myers, published on Polygon.com, written by Eric Van Allen, our former Compete colleague, who is great, and he wrote this really compelling review, and I was really hooked by it. And so basics of the game are it's like it's single player, but it's like Among Us or Mafia or any of those games. You're on this spaceship with a bunch of people, and one or more of you are Gnosia aliens that can kill people, and the rest of you are crew, and you are constantly trying to figure out who's a Gnosia. And then it's like a series of loops also. So it's like Among Us mixed with like a time loop movie, because every time you go through a loop, you start over from the beginning, except you and like one other person are the only people who know that you're in a loop. Everyone else just thinks that it's the same thing. And then it'll say like loop 1, loop 2, loop 3. And then the conditions you can pick. So you can pick like, I want to play this role, or I want 2 Gnosia on my ship, or 6 Gnosia, or like 15 crewmates. And each of the crewmates has his or her or its own personality, or their own personality, because I believe there's a non-binary one on there.
There are, yeah.
Nice.
And there's like an ongoing story and mystery, and the way that you unlock it is by repeating these loops with like under certain conditions, and it'll tell you like you have to do it under this condition to find this. And it's really, really interesting and like kind of tricky, because sometimes you'll be trying to like get through a loop and like learn something, but you'll get voted off because you said something stupid, and like they all think and it's really, really interesting. It's a fascinating game. It very much reminds me, it's like a visual novel, really. It reminds me a lot of like Zero Escape or like Danganronpa, because it has that vibe and like has that feeling. But it's also very gameplay oriented, because you spend a lot of time thinking about like, okay, how am I going to get everybody to vote for this person? Or like logically, if this person is claiming he's the engineer, but this person also said they were the engineer, like one of them has to be Gnosia, must be them. It's really, really cool. I really like it so far. It's definitely repetitive because you're going through these loops and like doing a lot of the same stuff over and over again. And I haven't gotten far enough to like be really into the main mystery, or like seeing how that resolves, or like what's gripping there. But like the main mystery is basically to try to figure out who the Gnosia are and why they keep taking over and stuff like that. So it's really compelling to me, and I'm really into it.
Nice.
It's called Gnosia. It's on the Switch.
That sounds like a cool game.
Yeah, it does sound super cool.
Gnosia. Maddy, take us away.
Okay, so I want to talk about Wandavision, which is a television show on Disney+.
Wandavision
It aired its final episode a week ago, so hopefully our listeners have finished it by now, but we don't have to spoil it too much. I also wanted to say, I've talked about this show a lot already, because I have a different podcast outside of this one that is called The Mutant Ages, where I talk about X-Men stuff, and Scarlet Witch, she's sometimes a mutant in the comics. They've retconned this back and forth a few times. She's certainly been in some X-Men adaptations and properties. And Wanda and Pietro, they used to be mutants. They're not currently, but I think they will be again at some point now that Disney owns the X-Men again. And part of why I watched WandaVision for my show was because I was like, maybe they'll put Magneto on this show, and they didn't do that. But they
I thought you were going to say
could have.
Maybe they'll put like the Quicksilver from the Fox movies in this show.
Yeah, maybe they
What a
will.
wild
Maybe they'll get
idea.
Evan Peters back. So if people want to hear me talk about WandaVision for 2 hours with 2 other people who know a lot about the comic books and watched all of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and know all of this lore about Wanda Maximoff, we have an episode at the Mutant Ages that folks can listen to. But I'd really like to hear from the two of you and what you thought about the show.
Wait, you didn't give your overall thoughts. Just give us your overall.
Gotta go check out the Mutant Ages.
Okay, fine. I'll give a really brief one. So I thought it was really interesting. I do come at it from a different perspective than the two of you, because I've read so many comic books. And so for me, I did not find the show surprising or twisty in the way that I think the average viewer might have. I wasn't surprised, for example, that Wanda was creating a pocket reality. I know she has the ability to do that. So even from the pilot episode, I was like, Wanda is coping with her grief about Vision and creating this pocket reality. And that's just a compelling thing for me to watch because I already know she can do that.
We should avoid too many spoilers, by the way.
Yeah. But I mean, that is the premise of the show, is that Wanda can bend reality to her will. And it's about her traumas and how she deals with that. And then, of course, there are other actors in her life who try to take advantage of her, of course, as one does with a superpowered being. And that is, I would say, the larger plot of the show, is the other people around Wanda and how they react to her. But I did think it was really cool, even as somebody who is super familiar with those comics, to see how they pulled from a ton of different comic book sources and recombined them into a story that was new and not in any comic book previously. They basically wrote their own version of Wanda and Vision's romance for this show that's inspired by, but not literally based on, any one previous storyline, which is quite difficult to do. And I think the MCU at its best does that very well, and at its worst, it's confusing, and people are like, I don't understand why some of these characters were here, but I guess they were in the comics. And like, I felt that WandaVision hewed more closely to the former than the latter, but you two don't have all that prior context, so it's part of why I'm curious about what you thought about it. So Kirk, why don't you go first? What did you think of the show?
Yeah. First of all, I just want to tell a funny, very short story, and that's that a couple of friends of ours watched the show, and they were like, I don't know, we didn't really like it, or we didn't really get it.
Yeah.
And then we learned later that they hadn't watched most of the Marvel movies, and they hadn't seen Endgame or Infinity War, and I was like, yeah, that would be kind of tough.
Yeah.
If you're like, I don't understand why everyone is, like what the snap was, or like that Vision died and Thanos killed him.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was kind of funny.
And sad.
And so then I was like, you should at least just go watch the Avengers ones.
Yeah.
It's like, and Civil War. It's like 5 movies, but you'll have a good time, and then you'll know what was going on.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot. In general, I was a little let down by the finale, which I think is a kind of a common sentiment. Just the Marvel-iness of it all. It just sort of became a big action scene. I loved, I'll be chill on spoilers, but I really loved all the stuff with Vision and Wanda, and I thought that this show did its main job, which was to make me care about that relationship, which the Avengers movies never had time to do. They just kind of, they were like, these two people are good looking and they seem nice. And like they have 2 scenes together where he's like her captor, but then they flirt and now they're just okay. And like you kind of just went with it because they just couldn't.
It's so weird. It makes no sense.
They couldn't show everything. And I knew enough about the comics that I knew they had a relationship. So, I just sort of rolled with it. But getting to see it and getting to see them, especially that second to last episode with the flashbacks and stuff, was wonderful. And like I'm just a sucker for like, pop culture being used as a way for people to escape bad circumstances, and like the meaning that we find in old TV, and like how like all of that stuff, that this show is really at its most emotionally potent when it's really dealing with that. And then they kind of rush through stuff, and then like any Marvel movie, the whole end is a big fight, and you're kind of like, oh,
it's a big Final Fantasy battle with like a bunch of sparkly stuff. Yeah.
Which like, okay, is a little bit of a bummer. I saw someone point out, this may have been Alan Sepinwall, saying that most Marvel movies have this problem, that the issue is that this was a season of TV. So instead of it being the last 20 minutes of the movie, where then we walk out of the movie and we're like, well, the overall experience was great, even if the last 20 minutes was kind of a whatever fight. This was the whole final episode, because percentage-wise, like it's sort of the same amount of the story. Yeah. So then you had to wait a whole week, and then you're like, oh, the finale was kind of just like a sort of a letdown. But it was still cool, and I'm like excited to see where she turns up next. And I liked it overall. I think it was a cool experiment, and that Marvel really lends itself to TV. Like, it worked for me to watch a TV show based on these characters from the movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved it. I've talked before about how much more I like TV than movies in general. And one of the reasons I like the MCU is because it feels like one big TV show where it's like recurring characters everywhere. But even then, I prefer the kind of smaller scale of a WandaVision, where it's like 9 episodes. You get to know these 2 characters for a long time. It made me want to go and rewatch some old MCU movies, which I did. And like suddenly I'm seeing Wanda and Vision in new lights when I watch them, which I've really enjoyed. Like rewatching Civil War was really cool, because you're like, oh, Wanda and Vision, oh cool, I know what happens.
Even Age of Ultron, it's definitely like,
I haven't done that yet. That one is
less liked Avengers movie. That's better than people give it credit for.
But yeah, it made me super stoked for future TV shows using these characters, because it like made me, and I'm super psyched for Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and then Loki, and like just to see all these people. Although, yeah, I'm with you on the ending because it feels very ridiculous that Wanda did not face the repercussions she maybe should have.
It's interesting because I feel like she did.
Well,
we got into that a lot on the show, but like I feel like
we'll have to listen to your show.
Well, I will spoil some of the comics at least by saying that I've always felt in the comics like Wanda is not necessarily presented as a heroic character. Like she's often making huge mistakes and bending reality in a terrifying way that is not condoned by the people around her. I mean, she's basically a godlike figure in terms of her power level. It's like absurd that she can bend reality, and people in the comics are always manipulating her to their own ends, and then it has disastrous consequences, of course, because why would you want to bend reality? It's usually not good to do that. So that's a wonderful comic book storyline that they do over and over again with her. And this felt like a show that was very much about that and very comic booky. So it was interesting to me to see people reacting to the show on Twitter and elsewhere and being like, whoa, like this super powered character, like it's kind of immoral that they have these absurd powers. And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, that is what it's about. That's the situation.
Well, but this is a little different. This felt a little different than like your standard like Civil War is all about how immoral the superheroes are. But this felt different because she was like really personally invading people on a
But they show that and they make you really feel horrible about everything.
They make you feel horrible until the very end where like Monica Rambeau and like
that line was stupid. I agree with you there. I mostly, for Monica Rambeau's sake, I hope she gets a really cool Captain Marvel storyline because I do feel like she got a lot of setup in WandaVision that was not paid off. Like I don't even know if that's a spoiler to say. Like I just don't feel like where they left
it's
her
all
story
set
was
up
as satisfying as it could have been. But you're right, it's all set up for other stuff.
It's all set up for future movies. That's part of this whole weird thing. It's like one ongoing show of like television instead of just a self-contained season or anything like that. But yeah, overall I really enjoyed it, and it made me care about like the relationship between a robot and a witch in a way that I never thought I would. I still don't understand.
It helps that it's a really hot robot.
Oh yeah,
I don't understand why she's in love with a robot.
I mean, yes,
both beautiful.
Yes,
Jason, it's so funny that you think that because having read so many comics about them, I feel like I completely understand it because they're the original odd couple. Like he's the robot, he thinks like a computer. He wants to be human. In the comics, that Pinocchio storyline is so much more a part of his character. It's like he's constantly hanging out with other humans and wanting to be like them. And so naturally he gravitates towards Wanda, who's the most emotional, the most intense person on the entire Avengers team. And all of her powers are based in emotion. Like that's how she gains her power, is from feeling. And so she is like the most human of all, which is also what makes her inhumane at times and extreme. And so that opposites attract energy is what guides their relationship, is that like she wants to be more like Vision, who is always cold and in control, whereas he wants to be like her, who's like the most emotional, capable of feeling person that he's ever met. And they're just endlessly fascinated by each other, but also have this incredibly toxic relationship that can never work out and never does in the comics. They're always fighting, and it's very torturous.
Yeah, so none of what you just said is evident at all in the show.
I know, but
movies.
It's what I bring to the table, and
Got
then
it.
I enjoy the show more than other people do.
Got it.
Too bad for them, I guess.
One more quick thought, and then we have to go. Wanda has somehow seen every sitcom except for That 70s Show, and for some reason the mom of That 70s Show is just hanging out with her, and she doesn't recognize her. What is this world where all the other
That's really
sitcoms
what the issue is with the show. You're right. It's
Yes.
a huge
Major
plot hole.
plot
That's the big problem.
Cinema
All right.
sins, ding. It's over for WandaVision.
All right, we've got to say goodbye. Kirk, Maddy, see you both next week.
Yep, see you next week.
Bye.
Triple Click is produced by Jason Schreier, Maddie Myers, and me, Kirk Hamilton. I edit and mix the show and also wrote our theme music. Our show art is by Tom DJ. Some of the games and products we talked about on this episode may have been sent to us for free for review consideration. You can find a link to our ethics policy in the show notes. Triple Click is a proud member of the Maximum Fun Podcast Network, and if you like our show, we hope you'll consider supporting us by becoming a member at MaximumFun.org/join. Find us on Twitter at TripleClickPod, send email to tripleclick@MaximumFun.org, and find a link to our Discord in the show notes. Thanks for listening. See you next time.
MaximumFun.org.
Comedy and culture.
Artist owned. Audience supported.